Hello, I hope you're having a good day today. I wanted to just take a moment and share some thoughts and insights with you. Like anybody, I have moments that I have to be reminded to stop and pause and reconnect, to not get so lost in thoughts and perfectionism or the disempowering statements of why isn't this working. So one of the things that was brought to my attention as I was doing prayer and meditation for clarity to improve the thoughts that I was encompassing, I was reminded to reconnect with nature, to be nurtured. And this is a lot more powerful than a lot of folks might even realize or be considering if it's not something that you have grown up with. Since I was a little girl, one of the things that I have always been drawn to is nature. Being around the trees and plants and flowers, which is noticed by the outrageous amount of photographs that I take of nature, or going on trips or things like that, or even a flower that's probably the size of a pencil tip. But here's the thing about that. One of the important things that I talk about a lot is our connection with the Great Spirit, with God Source within, and that we are in a a spiritual universe, that we're in it, and that it's in us. And so maybe even a question might arise is, why would I need to go to or connect to nature, or as we may say, Mother Earth? Hi, Uncle Tim, thanks for joining me. Connecting through Mother Earth, isn't that considered separate? But it's really not, and here's why I say that. When we think about the knowledge, the premise that God Source, the Great Spirit, life force, is in all that is, in the trees and the bushes and the flowers and the grass, is Earth, then making that association, making that connection, with the standing people, the trees, the winged ones, the birds, the four-legged, wildlife, it allows us a new perspective. Just as every human being is an individualized expression of our divine source energy, so is every plant and the trees and wildlife, the rocks. All of it has this life force, God Source, in it. And so when we think about, oftentimes we might use the phrase of grounding or earthing to reestablish our innate, or remind ourselves of our innate connection with the divine. The reason why it is easier to utilize nature, or to hug a tree, literally, something I've done since I was very little, was because it has that pure relationship. It doesn't do what humans were made to do, which is to do an intensive and integrative process of thinking and observing and of sorting of in-depth thoughts. So the relationship and connection with the divine source energy in it, and that's exuding through it and from it, is more pure. Meaning not that there is bad, not that there's negative, but pure as in the essence of the divine is flowing more freely. So as I stand beneath this beautiful tree to help myself ground and reconnect, what am I grounding to? There was a time when we would say we're grounding to the core of the earth, but really, what is the core of the earth? It's the divine. It's source energy. It's God Source. It's the Great Spirit that is at the core, the life force, the super consciousness that is in and through everything. So it's a gift, it's a blessing to be able to say, I have various means to be able to connect to the divine, to God's source through nature, that it reminds me of the divinity that we reside in and that emanates to and through us. So it's such a blessing. Hi Patty, thanks for joining. Such a blessing to be able to be reminded of the divine presence always to and through us, through that which we observe, because we were meant to observe with our senses, the trees and the nature, that there's a signal, an affirmation, a reminder all around us. And that is the world that we live in. So that when we start to become more consumed than we need to in our minds and in our thoughts and daily activities, we have accessible to us, until we are better trained with our thinking and our thoughts, to turn to nature and say, thank you. Thank you for reminding me I am directly sourced and connected to the divine power that is holding the purest aspects of that of what I reach for. All that is good, all that is beautiful, all that is unconditional love and compassion. And that is what abundance represents. It comes in everything that we are surrounded by. One of the stories that I shared at one time about earlier in my years is making that connection of spirit by having the desire to know what is the experience that flowers and a bumblebee was experiencing with that direct relationship with the God source. And as I laid in the grass and I allowed myself to settle into that presence and just be present with it, I had the opportunity to discover at a embodied level of what that means to be a vibrational being and to be connected to source energy. Hi Dustin, thanks for joining. So it's such a beautiful thing to have the opportunity, the gifts that we have around us, the blessings that we have around us, to tap into that. If you would like to read more about my story, my earlier story, it's actually in chapter 4 of my book, HSP, Empathic and Empowered, Expanding My Perspective. So what my suggestion for all today is to take that time. Utilize the blessings that we have around us that we tend to take for granted. Nature. Maybe it's not your calling or part of what calls you, as far as, calling the trees standing people or what have you, and it's okay. But when you're reaching for something that feels like it's got a pure connection to Holy Spirit, the divine, the God source within, the life force, the super consciousness, whatever name that works for you, the Christ consciousness, it's there. And it helps you to ground and to remember that this is within you. So utilize that. Have a blessed day and the rest of your week. Reach out to nature, because you're only connecting to the divine source that is within and all that is. Much love and light. Namaste.